Well, now Mr. Jacobson's faith is calling him back to his home country, and so he must give up his U.S. citizenship.
Alex Coleman and Amy Spiropoulos had a chance to talk with Eric Jacobsons and the Memphis author Lare Arra, who's putting Eric's compelling story on paper for his upcoming book. Let's take a look.
And Eric, what a story, what an amazing story. How did all of this begin for you and your family?
As I mentioned, I grew up in Soviet Union, in Latvia, former Soviet Union, I should say. And so it was completely atheistic country dominated by communism. It was a repressive regime. It was an evil empire, as American president once pointed out. And living in that darkness and oppression, people are hungry and thirsty for truth, for freedom. And I had this hunger, and I found God. I became minister later on. And that's what KGB didn't like, and so my persecutions and confrontations with KGB started, and finally after a couple of years I had to leave my country, becoming political refugee.
That had to be, to many people, to many Americans, if we hear this, and when we do hear it, it had to be a frightening experience for you and your family, was it? Dealing with the KGB.
At that time, definitely was very frightening experience because I have small kids and death threats, harassment, blackmail, staged car accidents. So it was very, very scary. A couple of times I was very close to death, basically. But as the Bible says, we can rejoice even in our sufferings, because sufferings produce perseverance, and perseverance character. And that which doesn't kill us makes us stronger. And of course, when I look back to these persecutions and very tough, critical moments, I'm very thankful to God. It made me stronger. So it taught me a lot about life, about people.
And you actually gave up your U.S. citizenship to return to Latvia and go into politics. So sort of a reverse of what a lot of people do. That's very interesting.
Yeah, it was very, very difficult moment in my life, but there was no malice in my giving up U.S. citizenship. I talked to my good friend, U.S. ambassador to Latvia, and he completely understood. So that's a procedure you have to go through if you want to run for politics, for parliament, and at the other country you have to temporary or whatever to give up your U.S. citizenship.
Let's bring Lare into this. How did you find out about Eric's and say, we need to write a book about this?
Yeah, well, initially we were introduced to a mutual friend of ours who actually was taking boxing lessons from Eric's in Chicago. He had his own boxing and fitness club. And we met over lunch one day, and I thought initially the story was just about this Lutheran pastor who was a boxer, which was kind of interesting.
Very interesting, yeah.
The more I got to know him, of course, the more interested I was in this whole human rights aspect of the story, and the persecutions, the death threats. The book itself really involves a lot of political intrigue. It's almost like a thriller in a lot of ways, because I think it's the first book of its type that actually uses his actual KGB reports. I don't know of any other book that's actually printed those up before. So, and it also takes into account the current and very volatile political situation with respect to Russia and the Baltic states, which is a very hot topic today. And I don't know how much people realize it, but Eric himself has had confrontations with Vladimir Putin and the Kremlin over some very key issues, political issues over there. So it's a very, very hot topic right now and very relevant to today, I think.
And you want to speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, actually recently Boris Berezovsky, famous Russian oligarch, he visited Riga, Latvia, together with Neil Bush, the brother of George Bush. And Vladimir Putin wanted Berezovsky and probably Neil Bush in that case to detain and extradite them to Russia. And being Minister of Interior, like I was last 2 years, I refused to do that. So that's why we had this little international confrontation.
Right, right.
What are your thoughts, Eric's, about going back home? Any reservations there? Do you feel now the timing is right?
The timing is right now because Latvia is full-fledged member of EU and NATO. So we have U.S. Embassy here. Latvia is very civilized, country. It's a very beautiful country. You should come visit one day. But at the same time, we are like in the border between East and West. We are very close to Russia. And what's going on in Russia and Kremlin, I'm a little bit concerned about that. So there's always this political tension.
Lare, are your thoughts the international community is still really watching this story evolve?
Oh, absolutely, no doubt about it. And in fact, we have to be somewhat careful in terms of how we write it, because it is such a hot topic, and we don't want to inflame the already sort of volatile political situation between Latvia and the rest of the Baltic states and Russia right now, because it can be an issue. So,
what are some of the other key issues that you address in the book as well?
The persecution over freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the fact that the KGB goes to such lengths to really persecute people for their beliefs. So we talk a lot about that in the book. And I think what's amazing to me is the power of the human spirit to overcome these obstacles, even after literally, the KGB holding a gun to his family and without pulling the trigger but saying, if you don't leave now, we're going to kill them, to really come back and say, okay, enough is enough. I'm coming back and I want to make a difference with my people, my homeland. So
this definitely sounds like it has the makings for yet another book when Eric goes back.
It's taken about 3 years to write, because truly it couldn't have been completed until, I guess, the last chapter, which is talked about him coming back to Latvia and becoming the interior minister, because it's an evolving story. I mean, who knows what's going to happen a year from now, but I guess that would be for the sequel. But,
which we will look forward to. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us. Thank you very much.
We do appreciate it. More News Channel 3 Live at 9 coming up in just a moment.